Hello everyone, hope that you all are doing good. So today's video is a little different video. We won't be talking about new development. Rather than we'll be doing some correction to a already built project. That is two-step verification. But before starting the correction part, I would request you that if you find my videos knowledgeable, do like, share and comment on the videos, and if new to the channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon. So on two-step verification video, there was a comment by a viewer. So the comment is on your screens, you can also check that. Basically I'll explain the whole comment. So the comment mentions that in the two-step verification code there was a problem that when we register a user without even registering it or without even logging into the application, we were able to access the dashboard URL, and that was because we were not checking that okay, the user has correctly entered the OTP, is the user active on session or not, right? So to this viewer's comment, I've also checked in the code part and then mentioned that yes, this is the problem. So I also proposed a solution and I corrected the code at that moment only. But yes, there were some other problems with that correction code as well. So then on my correction part, the viewer also commented that we can do something like building a filter or anything on that, right? Before jumping to the dashboard code, a filter could be ran and then all those checking would be done in the filter part. So now today we'll be discussing about both the implementations, right? The implementation first done by me, that was the correction done by me at that moment, and now the second correction that we'll be doing, that we'll be developing a filter. So the first fix that I proposed and the problem with that, right? So let's jump to the code and let's discuss that. So if you go to the code part, I have already taken the checkout of the code. The issue that arrives, right? So when we are, suppose we are registering a user, right? And then we are logging into the user, right? Let's go to the controller part and let's say that okay, registration part is done. Now we are on the login part. So this is my login controller, right? So when we try to log in, right, when we log in and then we are being redirected to a screen where we have to put the OTP, right? So I'll not discuss each and every part of the code. For that I have already made a complete video. I'll link that into the description. You can go and check that video out. So you will be redirected to a particular screen where OTP verification part has been done, right? So when the OTP verification is done, then at that moment when we are verifying that okay, the user is present in the database and each and everything is done, right, in this call, OTP verification call, right? So here what we are doing, we are actually getting the user and then we are finding the user from the database and then checking that okay, the OTP is being entered by the user is correct or not, and then setting the user session as active, right? If the OTP entered by the user is correct, then we are setting the user session as active. So there was a introduction of a field in the user class that was an active, right? So is active boolean was introduced in user class. So I'm setting this is active to true when we are in the login controller, right? When the OTP entered by the user is correct, right? I am also saving the session as true for the user and also redirecting the user to the dashboard controller, right? So this was the original, this was the flow which is going like when you are trying to log in and after login you are entering the OTP and you are being redirected to a dashboard file. Now if you directly access the dashboard controller, it directly displays the dashboard HTML before this code was written, right? So before this code was written, it was directly returning you the dashboard HTML. But now what I did, I gave it a fix, right? So we are fetching the user details from the database, right? And then I just added this if condition that if the user is active, then only the controller should return the dashboard HTML. Otherwise, it should return directly to the OTP verification screen, right? So with an error that okay, you haven't entered the OTP or the OTP is wrong, right? So the user will be redirected to the dashboard only and only if the user session is active, right? So this was the fix that I gave, right? And on that fix, there was a comment that okay, if I have around 5 or 6 more controllers in my applications, so that it would get a little tedious to add this if condition in all the controller calls, right? So for that, a proposed solution was that to add a filter before adding before all the calls are being hit by the application. So the second solution that the fix which we'll be implementing today, so that fix is that let's go first to the Spring Security Controller. So what we can do in this security part, we can simply say that dot add filter before, right? So add filter before tells that for each and every request this filter should get fired, right? So now here you have to give the name of the filter that you are defining, and then here you have to give the basic username filter, right? So you are using a basic filter, so you can simply say basic authentication filter dot class, right? So you can simply give this, right? And you need a filter here, right? So you have to first define a class in the config package. So let's say the class is auth filter. Let me implement this filter by using implements, and I'll say filter, right? Filter of JavaX servlet, right? So now I have a method to implement that is important for us. So the method is doFilter. So here we have to write the code for defining that, okay, what code should be ran for each and every call, before each and every call. So if you go back to Spring Security Config, you have to define the filter here, right? So how you can define the filter? You should you can auto wire your filter here. You can auto wire. So here we'll have the filter element added, right? So filter is being added in the add filter before, and a basic authentication filter class has been there. So now if you go to the auth filter class, here you have to write the code that what code should be ran before each and every controller call has been hit, right? So but before that, if you are running a filter before each and every call, then your login controller, your registration controller will also have to go through the filters. So you have to prevent them also from not going into the filters, right? For that, right, let's start writing the code. So what you can do here, so what we can do here is, first what we need to have the URLs that are being excluded for this call. So we can define an array or a list where we can put in 2 or 3 or any URLs, n number of URLs that are being excluded for coming into this filter. So you can define a list like this, right? So you can define a list like excluded endpoints, and you can have the endpoints as registration and login, right? For the URLs registration and login, this filter should not work, right? So you should write the code according to this filtration. Right, we have to match the pattern of the URL. So we can simply define a and path matcher, right? And we can say path matcher, right? So we have defined an and path matcher, right? So it needs the declaration. Okay, it needs a declaration. So we can say this. We can simply say you can simply see that we are first checking that, okay, is the requested URL present in the excluded endpoint list? If it is present, then is excluded endpoint is true, right? And if is excluded endpoint is true, then you don't have to do anything, you just have to return it, right? If the requested URI is of login or of maybe registration, then you don't have to do anything, you just have to return that, right? And if the is excluded endpoint is not true, that it is not like the request is not for login, request is not for registration, it's a different request. So what you have to do, you have to find the user from security context, what we have done, right? We have checked that security context dot authentication is not null, and if this is also null, then we are simply returning the login page to the user, that okay, you have done something wrong, or maybe you are not you have not logged in into the system, that's why we are returning you the login page, right? And if the authentication is not null, then what we are doing, we are fetching the user details from the authentication, right? And then what we are checking that, okay, is the user active? is the user has inserted his or her OTP or not. If the OTP is not inserted by the user, then also we'll say that okay, you are redirected to login screen again, right? You are not being you are attempting to log in with the wrong OTP, right? So that in that case also, if the user is not active, that in that case also we are redirecting the user to /login, right? And if the user is active, then what we have to do, we have to simply run the user to the particular controller part. Right now with this, you know that okay, all the security part has been taken care of, right? Any controller you add, maybe in going ahead we have 2 or more controllers added, so we have simply written a security file, that a filter file that runs before each and every call and checks that okay, if the user is active, then only give the access to that particular to that particular URL, or else don't give the access, simply return the user to the login page, right? So this is the second way that you can fix your code, right? So I've done two different videos, one for SMS, one for email, so you'll get the fix in both the code part, right? So now the first fix was that you can simply put a boolean in your user entity and check that okay, if the user is active, set the user active when the OTP is being verified, and check that okay, is the user active in each and every dashboard, in each and every controller call. If that is tedious for you, if the controllers are more in number, then you can simply write an filter class, and you can implement that filter before in the that says that okay, filter should be ran for each and every controller call, and you can exclude some of the URLs, right, using the list part. So now let's go to the main class and let's run the application, right? So I have already inserted the app password by generating it from Gmail, right? You can check my previous video of how to integrate Gmail if you want to know that how to generate the app password, right? So I have already generated that app password, and also I have added the database in the application.properties. So let's run the code first, right? Let me save this file as well, and let me now again go to the main class and let me run the application. Okay, so there is an error. So error says that you have to inject the bean. Okay, just let me go to auth filter, and we haven't defined this auth filter as a component, so you have to define this as a component. Again, run the application. So now my application has started, right? So my application has started. Let's go to the browser and let's hit the endpoint 8080 and let's go to registration, right? So if so let's first register the user first, right? So now if you can see that we are being able to access register, so let's run the code by saying simply Raman, and let me input my email ID, and let me say password as 1 2 3 4 5 6, and let me register it. So after registering, we are being redirected to login. When we try to log in, then email of OTP will be. So if I simply try now, let's see that if that issue persists or not. Right now I'm on login. I have registered a user. If I don't try to log in, and if I simply say /dashboard, will it redirect? Yes. So it hasn't redirected me to the dashboard. It has redirected me to the login screen again. Right, so if I try it again, like /dashboard, so it has redirected me to the login again, because my session was not active for that particular user, right? So let's log in. Let me simply say Raman. So now if I log in, the OTP will be sent to me, right? So let me click on login. So now the OTP will be sent to me on my email ID. So this is the OTP that has been sent to me, 8732. So let me try and log in using 8732, right, 732. So let me submit. So yes, I am being redirected to the dashboard. Now if I try to log out from the application and again try to go to the /dashboard, will it allow me? So let me hit no. So it doesn't allow me to go back to the dashboard when I have logged out, right? So this is how you can prevent your application, right? And for this I thank this particular viewer. I would thank to my viewer for telling each and every person that this is the problem that the code has, and thanks to him that I could implement another solution of adding a filter in all the requests. So thank you so much. So this was it from this video. Hope that you people like, share, comment on the video, and if new to the channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon. Hope to see you in the next video. Till then, happy learning.